There are different things that draw us to any particular story on any particular day. Whether you're a mood reader, you have your favorite genre, you have your favorite author, or anything else, something will always draw you to a book. Today, we talk about fantasy. And within that, we get two different types of authors with two different types of approaches. And both are quite fascinating. How about serial killers in fantasy? Or river nymphs? Is that your thing? Personally, I'm here for it. Both Allie Williams and Rhiannon Rollness have quite a fun time with me because, I mean, how can you not? When you get to talk about your craft, you get to talk about your books and your work, you get to introduce it to new readers, potentially new authors who will also read you, and just so much more. It's really fun. And also, you can see the similarities and differences as authors that we are. And so, today we get to have a little bit of fun, and me and Rhiannon realize we have something in common. And me and Allie catch up because I've known Allie for quite a long time at this point, and I adore talking to her about her books any chance I get. So tune in and hear about how fantasy can bleed into reality and vice versa.
Okay, hi. My name's Rhiannon Rollness. I am a fantasy and romantasy author, and I did not always want to be a writer. I did write poetry when I was a kid, very bad poetry that my mom found the other day and gave to me. Mortifying. Um, and I was very um, like logical. I thought that I could never make a living as a writer, and so I never even considered pursuing writing. And then when I got my master's degree, my other career is nursing. I got my master's degree, and then I was like, well, now what do I do? Like I didn't have any plans after that, and so I decided to kind of pursue this thing that I'd always thought I could not pursue. And I just released my debut this year, so I hope to keep writing more.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And Allie?
I think actually, Ray, you were around when I got my first book published.
Yeah.
We've been writing together for a while, so I always wanted to be a writer. I had this terrible thing that every time I applied to Harlequin, they closed the line I was submitting for, like every single time. So I just stopped submitting to Harlequin in fear that I would collapse the entire company. But while I was doing that, I was also doing my PhD. So I'm doing a creative writing PhD in neurodiversity, kink and queerness in romance novels. It did not start off exactly like that, but romance has always been the focus. And so the very first thing I wrote was a short story. And then as that was developing, I started writing this fantasy, sort of paranormal romance, romantic urban fantasy kind of book. It is the only paranormal romance I've ever written, which is straight, because soon after that I realised that I should stop doing to my characters what I've been doing to myself, and let them be as gay as I am. So since then I write paranormal romance and urban fantasy. I write erotic romance under two pen names. So that's me.
Welcome, Allie and Rhiannon. So fantasy has, so many different elements to it, right? There's so many different ways you can kind of go about it. Magical realism, urban fantasy, as Allie mentioned, romantasy, as Rhiannon mentioned, high fantasy, dark fantasy, etc. It goes on and forth. They're very different as far as like how you approach them. I think. I don't know. I haven't written a fantasy, so maybe I'm wrong. But I think that like how you approach each of them is different within the genre. And so I'm curious how many times I can say fantasy because I did say fantasy a lot. Do we have this genre blending that kind of distorts the way we understand the differences, or does it make it clearer what each of these subgenres within fantasy is? And how do you think that might have changed over the years? I know Rhiannon, you're a little bit newer because you said you just published your debut, but that doesn't mean you haven't been reading it. So do you want to start?
Sure. I actually think, from a reader and a writer's perspective, I think the blending and the like kind of labeling of subgenres helps as a reader know what to expect. Not necessarily in plot, but in tone or kind of just like the overall feel of a story. You could take the exact same trope or the exact same plot and put it in every different genre, and a paranormal arranged marriage is going to be, maybe you're going to expect like a vampire or werewolf marriage. You throw it in epic high fantasy, and now you're thinking, oh, maybe there's elves or fae or something else, you know? So going into it, I think it helps readers have a better expectation. And as a writer, if you know that expectation, you can always twist tropes and you can always make things more unique. And I think you should. But you also go into it knowing what your readers want out of the genre and why they go to that instead of one of the other fantasy genres.
One of the things I'm finding really sorry. Did I
I just
interrupt?
agreed.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Continue as well. I think actually one of the things I'm finding really interesting with almost all subgenres of fantasy romance, etc. at the moment is the element of suspense coming in more and more and more. Like a narrative, it comes naturally in something like an epic fantasy or even romancy where there's some kind of quest and narrative arc that the hero or heroine is going on. But we're finding it even more in paranormal romances, cozy fantasy, urban fantasy. It's kind of slap bang right in the centre there. And I found it really interesting because I wrote a small town paranormal kinky romance because who doesn't love gender blending? And as I went through the little trilogy, with each book, I realised more and more, oh crap, I'm building like a 3-book arc mystery here that's going to be solved in the 3rd book. Completely took me by surprise. Had no idea that's what's going to happen because I'm a chaos gremlin. But it is something that I'm seeing more and more in any kind of speculative fiction, actually. That one of the things that readers are wanting is they're wanting either an element of suspense or a mystery to like something to like active goals outside of the romance itself, which I think is a really interesting thing when we think about how romances fit within this world of speculative fiction.
And what kind of drew you to writing fantasy out of all the different types of stories you could tell? Allie, why don't you start this time?
I'm a nerd. I'm a massive nerd. I could blame the autism, but I think I'd still be a nerd even if I wasn't autistic. So one of my special interests are mythologies. I'm really interested, particularly in the mythologies that are linked to my identities and my ethnicity. So British, Irish, Italian, Etruscan, sort of those kind of Celtic. I'm really interested in those mythologies. And I basically was just like, I want to write books set in a world where all of that comes together. So like, the gods touched. Am I allowed to talk about my books yet? Are there later questions? Can I talk about the books now, Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all my paranormal romances are set in the gods touch universe. The premise is that magic is leaking back into the world, and it's bringing with it gods who interfere in the lives of mortals. Sometimes the gods are just meddlesome. Sometimes they're matchmakers. Sometimes they just want to fuck. That is basically the premise. But what it means I can do is within the universe, I have many. Stop laughing at me. You used to be by now, already, right? And the Italian
I am, but it still takes me off guard.
Each mini-series, I get to explore different pantheons. So I have the Unleashed Fae, which focuses on the Tuatha De Danann and the Irish Fae mythology. I have the Breed Hunt, which is based, and the Aranixus, which is based around ancient Britons. I'm currently setting up an Etruscan series, which I may have to go on a research trip to Italy for. I feel like this is really
Oh
important.
no, I have to go
Absolutely.
to Italy.
Yeah, so for me, fantasy came about because I love reading it, but I'm also a massive nerd. Like I'm fascinated constantly in how myths and legends get retold and retold and retold.
Yeah.
That's my particular brand of nerd. Your go, Rhiannon.
I love that. I definitely also self-identify as a nerd. I I actually it's not funny, but it kind of is. I almost got held back in like third and fourth grade because I could not read. And so to get me into reading, my tutor talked to my mom and was like, you got to find something she likes. Like, it's clear she doesn't like the books we're reading at school. You have to find her something she likes or she's never going to learn how to read, like proficiently. And my mom let me read V.C. Andrews, which I do not recommend.
As a third grader?
I was told to just skip the parts that were inappropriate.
Did you skip them though, Rhiannon? Did you?
I did most of them, but sometimes I didn't know they were inappropriate until I was like pretty far in, and then it was too late. But so that is kind of like what started getting me into reading, but
Yeah.
that still wasn't my jam. I liked the drama of it, and kind of like these big scopes, but it wasn't. I got better at reading, but I didn't reach for that brand. Like, I didn't keep wanting to read V.C. Andrews. And then I was a horse girl. I grew up on a farm. Somebody gave me a book about unicorns, and I can't remember what it was called. Had a unicorn on the cover. It was like a young adult or middle grade book where a girl like goes into a world where there's real unicorns. And that hooked me on fantasy. And ever since then, I was just obsessed. I would read anything that was not real. So that's kind of where like my love of the genre started. And so then, like I said, I wrote poetry when I was younger, and the older I got, the more my poetry was like more abstract. And when I decided to start writing a novel, it just never even occurred to me to write anything except for fantasy.
I love that. So, what have you found to be the hardest part of building out your fantasies, Rhiannon? Since this is your debut, I don't know if you have the other ones planned already, but like, however you take the word fantasy, um, what has been the hardest part of building it out? And let's start with you.
I think so. My debut was not the first book I wrote, so I did, do a little more writing before that. And I think the hardest part is really like making rules, like making
Yeah.
it so that you can't just get out of everything by having magic, or you can't, and I'm not an outliner. I'm not a big planner. Like, I definitely have thoughts, but when I start writing, I just want to like, it's all about vibes. I just want to get into it and get it done. And then at the end, I'll go back and like, really rip things apart. But my first draft, I'm just having a good time, and it gets hard for me sometimes to be like, no, there are rules. Every people have to have rules. Worlds have to have rules. You can't just do whatever you want. And so that's always the hardest part whenever I start a new book is like, what are your rules this time? What do you not get to do to make things easy? So that's
Yeah.
always difficult for me.
Hard same. Part of the reasons I haven't like drifted into fantasies, the ideas up here, and I'm like, but the world, but the world. So I like that. Yeah. And sometimes when you read a book, you're like, how does that make
Mm.
sense? I know that you wrote this author, but however, okay.
I cheat. My books are set in our world, and magic is coming
Oh.
back. And gods come with it. So a lot of the like creation of a new world thing, I don't have to do. My biggest challenge is plot because
Mm.
I'm used to writing a lot of erotic romance. It's fucking and vibes, and occasionally fucking with vibes, and that a lot of the time is just it.
I mean, what
Only
else could you want, really?
Exactly. Only I'm finding I keep on writing plots and they keep on taking me by surprise. So in the latest series in the Aaron Nix trilogy, I found out what happens like is ghost. There's a ghost in the final book. And I had no idea that there was going to be a ghost, or indeed that there were ghosts in this world, or how any of that worked. And it's kind of okay because it's never come up before. Like, I can build out bits and pieces and learn as I go along. But it is also occasionally a call when my mates and go, shit, I've written this thing, it makes perfect sense, but I have no idea how to build it into the world. And then we do like panicky world building plotting, and then I'm like, cool, I got this. This is fine. This is totally fine. Yeah. So being not a plotter really makes it challenging when it comes to actually writing plots and things happen and your characters do shit. It's so much more complicated when they leave the bedroom or wherever they're fucking and one thing. So much
I
more
think you're in
complicated.
company. I think you're in company. I don't plot either. What is plotting? That's a hard word for Elmo.
Yeah.
It's not a big word, it's a hard word. Um, I think that because there's so many different ways that you can kind of approach writing fantasy, except you need the rules and obviously you need to have some kind of plot because pantsing it fully, I think, just is probably too hard. I don't know. I haven't wrote one again. But speaking of like having what you have or haven't written, the subgenres of fantasy, like is there one that you have your eye on that you want to explore but you haven't really thought about or done yet?
I want to do more. I'm going to keep it all in the same world because it's just easier, and also then everything interlinks. Like you can go from one book to another book to one series to another series, buy through, smart. But I want to write more plots. I really don't, but I really do at the same time. And that means writing longer books. Like my books are usually like a lot of them are about 20,000 words. Like I write really tightly, really intense sort of novellas that I really love and enjoy writing, and they work. But in order to write more of the plot stuff I want to do, I'm going to have to write longer, and that is a real struggle for my ADHD brain. I
You
don't
mean
think
these?
I could ever write an epic fantasy. Yes. Oh yeah, you
That's
have
beautiful.
Yeah, because they just
I love it.
they just came in the mail, so I can actually show one.
so
I actually
pretty.
have a book near me.
Obsessed with that cover. My God, Leni Kaplan is a goddess. Like most expensive thing I have ever bought in my entire career.
But it's
It's
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah.
Lenny Kaufman
Mm.
can illustrate
Mm.
like ridiculously amazing. Anywho, yeah, you will have to write longer at some point, which means something like what more epic, more high fantasy style, or
I'll probably
what?
stay within the same genre, but I think I probably at some point. I don't. Thing is, I don't know if I can anymore. Like I started, my longest is 40,000 words. I've done 35,000 a couple of times in erotic romance, and then but that's mostly chat, negotiate, fuck, chat, negotiate, fuck, chat, negotiate, etc., etc. Which is great. But like, I think in order to do it, I'll have to do actual plotting, and that is upsetting. Like really upsetting. Like, damn it. What about you, Rhiannon? What are the things? Is there? What is your debut? What's the? Tell us.
Yeah, you haven't talked about it. Tell the world.
Uh, my debut. It's called Black and Blue Widow. It's a dark romantasy where she is a female serial killer, kind of like Dexter style, where she only kills people who deserve it. And then she gets caught by her next target's brother, and he does not turn her in. He proposes. So dark romantasy, very dark world, but the romance itself is not dark. And that's a standalone. And so I can get away with pantsing, I think, when I have a standalone.
Yeah.
The book I'm writing right now is a standalone, but my first book is definitely a series, and that is why it is not published because the follow through to plot through a series is yeah, I have a hard time with it. I would like to be able to write a series, and I would also like I have an idea for a book that is more like magical realism. So it's definitely more like real world based, but with magic. So that's a genre I would like to everything else I've written is very much in the fantasy, romantasy realm, like second world fantasy. So this would be something I would like to try, but then there are a lot of rules if you do that. So we'll see.
I just borrowed it because it is available on Kindle Unlimited for those watching, and the cover is really pretty.
It's
Like,
so
really
pretty.
Thank you.
pretty. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just like, you had me at serial killer. And it is sitting in my Kindle, and I'm staring at all the things that I want to read and looking at all the words that I need to write. And
Whoa.
I don't know who's winning because we're just staring at both. Um,
The
Uh,
but
writing reading dilemma is very difficult.
listen, I'm in a reading group with Allie, um,
well, we take
and we're
with
supposed to
every
be
single
reading.
book.
We're supposed to be reading Babel right now. Have I read more than a chapter?
I'm so excited for this book, and I'm the one who recommended it because
You are.
James, who's in our reading group, keeps on complaining that we keep on putting like the first book in a series and no standalones. So I found a standalone, but it's chunky, and I want to read it so bad, and I just haven't even picked it up yet. I have it in Kindle and paperback, but
I've read 1.5 chapters in 3 weeks, and we're supposed to do this at the end of July. And I'm like, am I gonna
no,
finish
not
the
the
book?
end of July. Isn't it the first week in July?
Don't say that.
Yeah, I swear it's the first. It's
I think
June
I know
3rd.
what you're doing the rest of today and tomorrow and the next day.
I have so much writing.
I
It's
could
fine.
be
It's
very
fine.
wrong. I could be very wrong, but I've got it in our diary that we're meeting in July. So
I don't know. We'll see. That's scary. It's fine. Anyway, it's everything is fine. Everything is
nothing
fine.
is right. Everything's okay. Yeah.
Do you think that back to fantasy, do you think it's or subgenres in general, but definitely within fantasy, do you find that it might be harder to break into certain subgenres or find your footing than others? Like, do you think it's easier for people to get books, attention on books that are magical realism versus dark fantasy or romantasy versus epic fantasy? Like, or does it kind of just like depend on how you market and all that kind of things? Rhiannon, let's start with you.
Um, because I haven't published a lot, it's hard for me to say like what like which genres are harder to get into as a writer. I will say for me as a reader, like the longer I've been reading, the harder time I have getting invested in books without any romantic plot.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's um, male, female, sapphic. As long as there's some sort of romance kind of pulling the story along, I can get super invested, and I have a very difficult time picking up a book. I will still probably enjoy a book without romance, but like to pick it up and start reading it, I just drag my feet if I don't know that there's romance in it.
You need a subplot of romance, regardless of genre.
Yep.
So for me, it's really difficult because the market's really crowded. Right? There's been this explosion of fantasy in particular at the moment.
Mm.
With the rise of with things like Fourth Wing, Legends and Lattes, you've got these two kind of almost opposing styles of one is dragons and spicy, one is sort of low stakes, cozy, no sex on the page. Out of the two of them, I actually prefer Legends and Lattes. I think it's an excellent book. So that's why when you said yours is a dark romance, I think it's really smart from a marketing perspective because dark romance is really popular, romance is really popular. Blending the two is makes your book unique in the way that you stand out. Um, I write mainly sapphic, and I find that actually marketing towards sapphic readers rather than just fantasy readers is the thing that actually helps me sell my books the most. Um, Although if I go to signings, the thing that sells more than anything else are any kind of special editions. Like if you have a special edition with
Mm.
you, I have this flip book. Rainbow Crate did a flip book. Has Mika got it?
Mika has it somewhere. Let me
I
step
want to
off screen.
see.
It is
I
like
want to see.
I'm like, it's
it's
on
one
one
of
of her
the
shelves. Hold
prettiest
on. She told me
things.
yesterday. And I was like, this thing is so pretty. Let me
It's
steal it off the shelf.
gorgeous. And they sent 50 they got an additional 50 copies printed for me. So I paid them
Mm.
for an additional 50 copies. So I take those to signings. Oh,
Okay.
it's so pretty.
Ooh.
And then flip it. And then the sprayed edges. And then there's end pages
And they're
art.
like metallic. Oh, they're so beautiful.
End pages art. And then there's
Wow.
not safe for work art on the actual hard case itself. Like,
I can't show the non-safe part, but you know,
no,
it's
there's a lot of boob.
we're gonna say thank you, Mika
That's
Jane,
beautiful,
for
though.
having this on hand.
It's so pretty, and I have it available on my website. Um, but I'm finding more and more that readers are really interested. If you're at a book centre, I'm finding that readers are interested in books as physical objects more than, like, they'll go for vibes as well, and they're more likely to pick up something they have vibes for. But if something is really beautiful, has a really pretty cover, has sprayed edges, they're drawn to it in a way that I think is really interesting. We've had like a massive peak in physical book sales that we haven't seen since the end of the Second World War.
Wow.
Which is really interesting, especially when you consider what's happening with paper and tariffs. Like, books aren't tariffed, so you can send books to and from without there being tariffs on them. However, paper itself does have quite high tariffs. So there's this huge want for new special books. And I'm not sure about the US, but over here we have a chain called Waterstones.
Sorry, continue.
We have a chain called Waterstones, and they are now working with publishers to produce special editions of hardback books almost constantly, and they are almost all fantasy, romantasy, some sci-fi, occasionally romance, but most of the time it's fantasy and romantasy and sci-fi, like speculative fiction. And I think it's going to change the industry in the next 4 to 5 years. I think in about 5 years' time, if you're not printing books as special editions, they're not going to sell because people want the exclusivity of them. Like, readers who, Fourth Wing is a really good example, have got 6 different special editions of Fourth Wing and one paperback copy that they actually read. The others are just collections. So as writers, it's not just about marketing the subgenre or the genre or what we're writing. It's about packaging, because books as an object are powerful, especially when we consider. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a rant. Apologies. Especially when we consider the impact of possible laws coming out that are going to impact, possibly restrict queer writing and explicit writing and all of this stuff that's starting to really raise its head, and everything that was in Project 25, basically. All that shit. That is really scary. I think the physicality of owning physical books is going to become really, really important as they try and eradicate online ebooks. That is not at all the question you asked. But hey, have the answer anyway.
It plays into the question though, because you answered like what how hard is it to get into something, and that does play a role. I did notice, I went to Black Romance Book Fest in May, and I did notice that some of the authors that were there sold out of their special editions much more than they did their regular copies. And there's like been a lot of discourse on the different social media apps that where people are like, look, buying a book and reading a book are two different things.
Yeah.
I bought this because it's pretty. Am I going to read it? Maybe. I bought this because I want to read it. Like, so there is that whole like, yes, you can market your book, you can say all the things that people like, and then if it doesn't look pretty, it might not sell.
Mm.
That is a very real situation. So I think that you answered the question and beyond. And like
Overachiever
Rhiannon,
here.
like Rhiannon said though, as a reader, sometimes like if there's certain things that aren't included in that book, you might not like, even if it sounds really interesting, you're like, but it's missing that one thing, and so maybe you're not attracted to it. But if it's pretty, you might buy it.
Yeah, and I think tropes are like being able to do an elevator pitch for a book is really, really important these days, because there are so many. The market is so saturated that it's really hard to stand out. Like, I have those beautiful covers from the They're stunning. I'm nowhere near making back what I spent on them. Do I care? I mean, yes, I would like to make money back, obviously. Um, but also it's about writing the stuff that I want to write, and so much of it depends on your social media presence and what you can do. And I live in burnout, and so it varies. So it's an interesting one. It's an interesting market, and yeah.
I also think what plays into it is I'm getting okay. I don't want to get political. Never mind. I was just gonna say like not only the style of writing that you're doing, but like what your characters look like and what you look like.
Yes, yes.
It
Rhiannon
automatically.
is a fucking ghost. White, white, white.
So like if you're writing sapphic or MM,
Yeah,
there's a difference there.
yeah. There's a difference between sapphic and
If you're
MM.
writing cis het, there's a difference there. Different things sell different ways, and it's sad, but it is. And then if you add any other um, identities to those characters, then it can go up or down from there too. Um,
Interestingly, I find that the more I talk about my neurodiverse characters, my sales go up, and they almost cancel out the fact that they're sapphic, which pulls them down in some circles. Um, and yeah, like I'm a white. I was going to say straight passing. I really can't pass for straight these days. I don't want to either. The revolution. Um,
but
no,
no, I think it's a real conversation to be had because any book can be great. Some books just do better.
I think a really good example
Absolutely.
of that is Legend Dawn, right? The
Yeah.
oh, I've forgotten her name.
Tracy Deonn?
Thank you. Yes, her books are phenomenal, and they have a huge marketing. They have a huge fan base. They sell absolutely amazing, like New York Times bestsellers. But when you went to when they came, the third book in the trilogy came out, people went to Barnes and Noble. The placement of the books was so
Yeah.
bad. And a huge part of that is down to the publisher as well. And as an indie, a self-publisher, I self-publish, like you have a limited amount of control over where someone puts your book in a shop. If it's in the shop, well, hey, you're winning. But that series was huge. It did amazing. It should have been as big as Fourth Wing, and if the publisher had put enough money and marketing behind it, then it probably would have been. Only she's a back author, and so it didn't, and that seems shitty.
Yeah, but it's still sold, even though,
Yeah.
like, not diminishing the fact that it was handled very poorly.
Oh, it's still
It still hit
cinema.
number one.
Yeah,
So,
it's
so it was just
such a good
like
series
a
as
big
well.
F you, like, okay, you don't want to put your money behind me, how and ever. Look what I can still do.
Yeah, and it's just stupid because
And
they're
it's
like,
frustrating.
I don't understand. Like, I do not understand. Like these books outperform again and again and again. Why not put your money behind them? You're throwing money away. Foolish, foolish publishers. If only they let me run the world. That
There was a lovely thread I saw, a woman had posted a few weeks ago, and she was just basically saying that unfortunately, some people have to sing and dance to show that they are as talented as they are, even though their sales have translated to show that, even though their fandom has translated to
yes,
show that, they still have to do everything and a third to get the marketing they deserve and don't get it. Um, and it kind of goes across genres at that point for different authors
yes.
who have proven success and still get treated as if they need to show that they can actually sell.
They get the marketing of a mid-list author when they're really, really not a mid-list author.
Or no, I'm not going to even say or debut because debuts sometimes get really, really, really good marketing,
Yeah,
and sometimes they don't. So I don't know. It sucks to see some really amazing books across genre written by various different people that
yeah.
don't get the support that they deserve. Um,
Yeah.
it's frustrating. Anywho, most books aim to teach a reader something, even if it's just like self-love, what you desire, living in your truth, or anything of that sort. So is there something that you find that you've written in the books, published or not, that is like kind of, even if it's not overt, is a theme for you across your books? Rhiannon.
I think that a theme that always comes across my books in a different way um, is really about control and about um, sometimes it's more overt, like Black and Blue Widow is very much like F the patriarchy, um, you know, very obvious themes about control. But all of my books seem to have some version of control, whether it's over your own life, over your own decisions, over your um, like the way that you respond to a situation, whatever it is. It's always about the main character really struggling for like control and autonomy in some sort of way.
And do you feel like because it's fantasy, it's different than other, like how it would show up in other books if you wrote mystery or horror or contemporary romance?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to write about it in a more unique way in fantasy because you can throw in things like magical powers. You can throw in these really really dystopian worlds. Black and Blue Widow is very dystopian, um, and you can play up things that are maybe there in the real world but are not as drastic or not as pronounced. You can play them up so that this theme is more obvious um, or more layered, or however you want to put that theme in. You get to build a world around your theme essentially, and that's one thing that I really enjoy about fantasy.
Allie, do you find a common thread in your books?
I mean, I these days I primarily write sapphic romances, so
Mhm.
I find like themes about female empowerment. I have Chase Me in the Woods, which I believe you also have a copy of, right? Which has Morrigan and Kira and Kira's ex-husband, who may or may not make it out of the book alive. That was very satisfying. Um, First time I've ever killed someone on page, and it took me by surprise. I was like, oh, I quite like this. Um, that's
It's quite fun.
it's really fun. One of the things I'm writing into my book a lot at the moment, because even my paranormals are set in our world with magic coming in, is references to trans and non-binary people. So in Nix and Tell, which is the first Aaron Nix's book, Chloe is a queer tailor. She owns a tailor shop, and she specialises in suits for queer people, but specifically also people who have had top surgery. So if they're trans, or because they've had a double mastectomy because of cancer, stuff like that. So I'm trying more and more to build in safe spaces and make sure that trans and non-binary people are part of the worlds that I build, because they're very much part of my world. And um, trans rights in the UK, I mean, US, yeah, but in the UK in particular, they are being fucked over quite a lot. I could go into it, but I will start ranting and going cosmos. But uh,
Do you feel that because you don't only write fantasy, you've written just contemporary erotic and erotic romance as well. Do you feel that it's different in how you approach that common thread that's in your fantasy versus what's in your other work? And if you decide to write any other genre, do you feel like the theme would stay the same or it might change?
um, I definitely write trans trans issues into my contemporary books. I have a series which I just started called Little's Market by the Sea, and it's basically a kink market. They are opening it for the first time, and then they get a load of TERFs, trans exclusionary radical, can we even call them feminists, turning up to protest because they found out that there are going to be trans women there, and so they have to like do a load of stuff, and that was very much a like making a political statement. And I have written trans characters. I'm currently writing a non-binary character. I primarily write sapphic, but I've written other pairings in the past. So and that's something that comes through. And authenticity, there, authenticity is like, I think the thing that is most important in my books. Like all my characters, all they want is to truly be themselves. Sometimes they've been hiding it. Sometimes they're coming to it. Sometimes they are learning that they don't have to bottle everything up on their own, and they can actually share with other people. And a lot of the time, because it's me, they discover these things through the kink. Because what isn't going to teach you about yourself like being flogged with a tree branch, or fisted in a river? To be fair, fisted in the river is an absolutely a selling point for Nix and Tell. Very proud of that. Like there's whole like sex magic, river magic thing going on with that. Like there's a river goddess, and she's not the one doing the fisting or being fisted, but like there's a whole like magical rule thing behind it. But authenticity, like trying to understand yourself, understand you, and it's the thing that I'm doing in my it's what I'm doing as part of my research in my PhD. So looking at the intersection between queerness, kink, and neurodiversity. How do they blend together? How do they inform each other? And then how, as writers, can we create spaces? Can we create citizenships? And can we create stories that act in contrast to what we call an intimate public? How can we create these counter publics that challenge everything that everyone assumes about romance? Yeah, they all assume that it's cutesy or it's Fabio, whereas you've got a serial killer woman who's unaliving all the worst men in the world, and I've got, everyone getting fisted left, right, and centre. Like, how is, but also partly because how does being ADHD or autistic change the way that we engage with people? How does it change the way we engage with kink? How does it change the way we engage with romance? I've basically taken my special interest and made it my job. I'm very proud of myself for that.
But is it a job if you love it?
Oh God, yes. Too many fucking deadlines for it not to be a job.
I mean, that's true.
I mean,
That's right.
I've gotten better. I've gotten better. But this year I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 release. I think it's only 8 in total this year.
Ellie,
Ray
don't
yells
make
at me on this.
me.
This is better, and I have kind of called part of what I'm doing for next year, and I've slowed it down a little bit.
I'm not gonna fuss at you publicly, but I am going to message you after.
She's like, wait till we get off this podcast.
Right. Um, Rhiannon, because Ali has kind of talked about it a little bit, I'm just curious, your take on it as well, if you're comfortable answering. Do you feel that what you write is kind of obviously having a female serial killer that is unaliving, undeserving people who are living their lives that is a statement, but do you feel that you have a political statement in your writing beyond that? Where do you live in the States?
I do.
Okay,
Mhm.
just checking. I didn't stalk you. Okay. I just was like, "Ooh, I want that book." But do you feel that because of the political climate that we're in, writing, obviously, no matter what you write, is a political statement, but do you feel that what you have included in your books is making a statement, especially with everything that is going on in society right now?
Um, yeah, I definitely feel that way. Part of the reason I had actually queried this book before I published it, and I last year I decided to self-publish, and I wanted to get it out sooner because it felt like the themes in it were a little more timely, and I thought a lot of people would um, find it cathartic and enjoy reading about it at this current time. So yes, I definitely think I always think it's interesting when when things are coming out about authors and they're like, well, I didn't know that they believed this thing, and it's like, did you read their books? Like, did you read it?
It's also been said that some people read but don't read.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there is that.
But yes,
Oh, okay, continue.
I was just gonna say yes. I definitely think that comes into my books, and I think it is always dependent on when they are written as well. Like I think
Mhm.
certain things come out, and then that while whatever you're writing at that time kind of plays into like your fears about what's happening or your anger about what's happening or whatever it is. So I'm sure in the next couple years we'll see more books that have to do with the climate that's happening right now, or books are coming out right now that are about a couple years ago. So I definitely think I mean we all know books are political, but I think that it's always included in some way, even if it's not overt. I will say, I think that for me, um, I think sometimes you pick the issue you're going to tackle in that book depending on
Yeah.
like the plot. So I don't think every book can do everything, and so
Right?
Great.
Black and Blue Widow is very based on like misogyny and patriarchy. My next book probably will not tackle that same thing because that's a big issue, but maybe it'll tackle a different thing that I feel strongly about. And so I think that's one great thing about authors who have a lot of a backlist is that you can kind of explore different pieces of whatever themes that they were trying to
Yeah.
show the reader in different ways.
I think that is a beautiful answer.
Absolutely classic.
It's I think I saw something on, I think it might have been Threads or TikTok. I don't know. I live on both of those. And a poster was talking about Kennedy Ryan. I know that's not fantasy, but they were saying, oh, you know what? It was not. It was YouTube.
One of the sites
It was a
out
whole
there on the
video.
internet somewhere.
Oh, listen, it's fine. The Sierra Simone, that's who it was talking about having spoken with Kennedy Ryan and talking about how her books had a political statement at the time of whatever was going on with what theme she wanted to talk about. So I think that it's very normal for authors to pick a theme or an issue or something and it be prevalent in their personal lives or in society, and that's what they write about. Even if it's traditionally published, it comes out a couple years later, or if it's indie published, it could come out however fast the author writes. And I think that it's important for us as authors to understand that we do that. And I don't think everyone realizes that we do that
Mhm.
internally. I don't think we realize it sometimes, but when you write something, you are making a statement on how you feel about a certain situation.
And I think
So,
also who we are as
Sorry.
well at the time of writing. So, like, I can usually tell I was working on in therapy when I read one of my previous books. Like, I have my other pen name, and I can tell you exactly by reading. Those are like short, like novelettes, tiny little short stories. I can tell you almost exactly what I'm working on in therapy every single week. Every time I read one of those, I'm like, oh yes, that was that week. Oh, my poor therapist. And I think that's the, there's that famous thing where people go, oh, where do you get your inspiration from your books?
life.
No one wants to say my life because then they'll make it weird and sexual. But also, like, yes, we get inspiration from our lives, from everything around us. And I think one of the joys of writing, of creating a world that has fantasy in it is, I just realised I didn't plug in my laptop. Twit, it's fine. Um, I may disappear for 2 seconds to plug it in and come back. Anyway, fuck, what was I saying?
Writing fantasy and what's interesting about writing fantasy because based on what you're putting into it.
Yeah, you manage to create worlds where you can overtly challenge structures that are bad that may echo structures that we have in our world without, and for readers who don't read will not read that as political and downvote you or like if you bad reviews because of it. The readers who readers do understand what you're saying, do get those points, will do. And I think there's a freedom in it that is really good.
What would you say is a takeaway that you'd like everyone to have when they read a book within the fantasy genre, yours or any other book? Rhiannon, do you want to start?
Hmm. I think that my big thing about fantasy is that it's what fantasy is really about is the human experience, right? Like that transcends genre. And so I really hope that when people read any fantasy book, um, or any book, but especially fantasy, that they do think about, you know, the human experience that's in it and what that means for them. Um, I think that you know, Allie talked about authenticity and like how her characters are probably sometimes, you know, searching for that. So when someone reads her book, I hope they, even if it is paranormal and there's magic, like I want them to pull from that, oh, I can be authentic. When someone reads my book and they see someone taking control, even if I don't recommend becoming a serial killer, of course, but
Maybe not that part of it. Don't
I
touch that.
just like a disclaimer for legal reasons, not condoning being a serial killer, but taking control in whatever way in your life feels right for you. I hope people see those themes and pull them forward and feel empowered in whatever way they need it to fit into their life, because fantasy is about the human experience. All books are about the human experience, and so when you read a book, you are taking something into yourself that is going to shape how you perceive things in the future. And so even people who don't read while they're reading, my hope is always that it's there. It's like a pebble in their shoe, and it's brushing against their thoughts and their biases or whatever, and it's going to slowly, you know, start to fester in a good way.
I like that.
Allie.
Oh, shit, I've got to follow
Me
that.
too.
What do I want people to take away about fantasy? I think the thing I like about fantasy most is the hope, right? Even when it's dystopian, it's the thing that seems at the heart of all of these narratives. Because a lot of the time it feeds into these good versus bad tropes in quite a very explicit way, right? And not to get political, because why would I do that? But
Allie would never do that.
think,
Never.
but like, there are bad things happening. And reading books in which the bad people get their comeuppance can be very satisfying. It can be very cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that I think that people should just read the books and feel better. That's not what I'm saying. What I really want is books to light a fire under people's asses so they go and do something. So if it's control, or raising issues around transness or immigration, or whatever it is that the author is trying to do, as a writer, I hope that, and it's usually why I write some stuff in the acknowledgements. I don't want people to read my books and go, that was a really cool book, I feel better now, and not think any further. Like, to be fair, let me clarify. They think my book is good, excellent. Yes, please. I would like that very much. Give me all the good reviews. That would be great.
I was gonna say, don't forget to leave her a review.
Yeah. But more than that, I want change. It's why I write. It's why I research. It's why I teach. I don't. I think that writing romance is rebellious. My PhD is called The Rebellious Heart of Romance. I think making space for people who don't get to see themselves in narratives is one of the most important things we can do, because not seeing yourself in narratives means that you can end up in relationships with terrible, terrible straight men for years. I would not recommend it. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything. My dad just the other day was like, "You have terrible taste in men, but excellent taste in women." And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much." Um,
There's a reason for that.
yeah,
Right.
way too gay. I want,
That and sometimes men are just trash.
yeah, true. I'm ABCD, anyone but cis dudes. Like, I can't be doing that. Too much work. Too much work. Anyway, I want things to change. And sometimes I don't have the capacity to go out and do big changes, so I do some of it through my writing. Um, but we need to change shit and we need to speak up and we need to speak out. And I think publishing books that challenge the status quo in whatever way, I think is a good way to start because it shows readers that when bad things happen, you can do good things. You can challenge it, even if it's difficult, even if it means just becoming a serial killer. Please don't become a serial killer, readers. This is not what we are not promoting this in any way, shape, or form.
Nobody is. Please don't.
No,
Please
And if
please
you
don't.
not.
do,
If you
don't
want to
talk
get
about my
I watched
book.
that, right? Like I watched a podcast with no, you
no.
didn't.
On the other hand, if you want to get fisted in a river, go for it. Just make sure you take, non-water-based lube. Um,
Oh
and
goodness,
really, I feel
Ellie.
like that is the takeaway from this: is go out, change the world, and get fisted in a river. Um, I really hope my parents aren't back yet. I'm at theirs this evening, and my mother
They're gonna be like,
is too Catholic for any of this talk.
they're gonna be like, okay, sweetie, we need to have a conversation. No, I agree. I like both of your answers, and the takeaways are equally like important. And obviously, there's so many things you can take away from reading in general, but definitely, it's really important to if an author is trying to convey um, something that people might be struggling with, if they know it or otherwise, and being able to see that in the book and be like, you know what, I can have power, take control over my situation and make a change. I'm not um stuck. I
Mm,
can find a way to get out of this if I, work toward it. And sometimes people do feel stuck. And reading about a fictional character who has found a way to change their situation can empower someone. Seeing that you're trying to make a change in a book, as the character is trying to make a change in the book, to help others can help people go, you know what, maybe I can donate $10 to something. I might not be able to physically do any, like, it
yeah,
does. I
I
think it
can
is
I can
important.
repost this post on Instagram, like even
Yeah,
small things like that. Or if someone's an asshole in person, you just go, "Hey, I don't think that's okay," or
yeah.
"That's not
So,
like have you here have some reading comprehension lessons."
yeah. So
Yeah,
I agree. Um, if someone was to pick up a book from your catalog, Rhiannon, you said this is not the first book you've written, but it's your debut. So do you have any other like short stories or anything else out? Or okay. So if someone
No.
picked up your book, um, why should they actually read it?
Because they're angry.
yes, yes.
So I did a podcast recently, and I was talking about, they're like, oh, there's so much like discussion that can be had about like morally gray, when it's okay to kill someone, blah blah blah. I'm like, yes, absolutely, that is so true, that's so important. That's not my book. My book is good for her. We're not critiquing um anything. The world is built so that you are just like, yes, do it. So that's why it's so terrible. It's like that for a reason. So if you are angry, that is the best time to read my book. At men. You're angry at men.
Excellent.
I mean, when aren't we angry at men?
Join
You
us on the
might have a
sapphic
great man
side.
in
It
your
makes
life.
things easier.
Listen, there might be a great man or some great men in your life, but you're
Yeah.
always angry at men.
The
No.
collective.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a fact. Allie, you have a quite
A
an
lot of
extensive
books.
catalog at this point, ma'am. Um, if someone was to pick up one particular book, which one would you recommend and why?
Okay, so I'm kind of cheating in that it's not technically out yet. It's Chase Me. It's it's up for pre-order. It comes out in August. It's called Chase Me in the Woods. You have got a sneak peek of the thing. It was in an anthology. I'm getting the rights back for it, and it is going to be. It is actually one of the books that I'm including in
Hmm.
my PhD, as part of the creative element of it, which is really cool. Um, and the premise is the book opens, and Kira is in a cottage in the westerly most point of Ireland, just outside Dingle, which is a real place. um, and her ex husband is across the road. And often in dark romances, he would be the hero. No, 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 no. He is evil. We hate him. Um, Basically, she's been hiding from her abusive ex. And then this wolf comes in and basically scares them off. And the wolf is the Morrigan, and it turns out, as in the dark goddess, triple goddess part of the Irish pantheon. And she has been letting Kira treat her like a puppy for the last couple of weeks, and like seeing her as her human. There's a whole thing with like Kira becoming pack. There's some primal play, chasing in the woods. It's adorable and also a little bit bloody. There is like the only person who dies deserves it. Similarly to your, but I really, really love it. I think it's probably the best thing I've ever written, and I feel it here. Like it feels really intense. And I also work with the Morrigan. The Morrigan's one of my goddesses that I work with, so it's a nice thing. However, if you want Fisting in a River, Nix and Tell is the first book in the Aaron Nix's trilogy, and it's the one with the pretty cover, and I really love that. There is more to that series than Fisting, I promise. There's like a
There's
river
still
goddess,
is
and
fisting. Everyone's gonna be like fisting. Yeah.
it's a
Allie,
small town paranormal romance with a load of kink, and I really love it. And it changed the world, the God's Touch universe, in ways that I wasn't expecting, which is really cool. And I'm doing a mega game at a board games festival based on it. Like I'm actually running a game where people are going to get to pretend to be river nix. River nixes are like they're river demons, a bit like kelpies. They drown people, and they're in English mythology. And so everyone think at the beginning of the game, everyone will assume that they're human, and then some people realize that they're nixes. Some people will realize that they're murderous nixes. Some people realize that they're gods. And so, like the game, the aim of the game is to get through the game without dying. Um, but then when you do die, and this is why I have a ghost and why everything changed in the book, was when people said, well, what happens when someone dies in the game? And I was like, shit, I need to work out what happens with ghosts in the book. So yeah, anyway, that's two. But yeah, I like my
when
books.
does
They're weird.
You
Go on.
said
when
August?
does Chase Me in the Woods come out?
Oh, yes, good point. Chase Me in the Woods comes out on the 4th of August. It's available for pre-order on Amazon. The paperback will be available directly from my website. Which is what I'm doing with most of my paperbacks these days. You can just buy them from me. And yes, I'm assuming that is a question as where you can find me.
It's coming up. Before we get there, I need
Mhm.
to know more about the fantasy in your book, Rhiannon. I love the female serial killer, and I love that she kind of gets caught, and then he proposes. Because, like, but where does the fantasy play in case people are like, but what does that have to do with fantasy?
Mhm.
Yeah, of course. That's a very good question. So the I also love mythology. This is inspired by Roman mythology because it's a dark, brutal world. So, of course, I had to pull in some Roman history and myth, but it is an alternate world. So, don't be, I
Mm.
took a lot of creative liberties.
Love that.
Um,
Love
so, the main one of the main characters, Luella, she's the serial killer. You can get blessings from the gods, and whichever god blesses you, you are able to use their power essentially. So if you were blessed by Mars, the god of war, you would be stronger. She is blessed by Janus, who is the god of new beginnings, and he is always portrayed with two faces. And so her power is shape-shifting, which is how she lures her prey to her. And is also why the male main character catching her is a little different than you would expect. So
This is cool. Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me move.
I've already borrowed it from Kindle Unlimited while we've been sitting here. Like, it's on my Kindle. It's my book to read tonight. That sounds fucking awesome. Yes.
do you read the content warnings? To everyone who's listening, definitely read the content warnings. It is very graphic. Like I said, I didn't want anyone to ever go into this and be like, oh, maybe she shouldn't kill this person. So super graphic content warnings are for real on page. People can always message me if they have questions about them, but I just want to make that very clear.
Yes. I have written a contemporary serial killer. It's not fantasy. It's just it's a 3-book series. It follows a journalist and a detective, and they're hunting the serial killer because the journalist uncovers the serial killer's existence. And then the serial killer is like, but I don't want to be caught. I have a purpose. It's very Dexter-esque because Dexter was my jam.
That's what I use for my comp too. I love
Yeah.
Dexter and I love serial killer books. So
yes.
you have to tell me the name of this book.
It's Reaction. It's Reaction Chronicles is the series, and it's Fatal Reaction is the first book, and it's really fun. I really loved getting in the mind of my serial killer, and I never really thought about moving my serial killing into a different type of genre, but I have some more assassins and killers in mind. So now I'm like, how can I make them fantasy?
Yes, you do.
It's really
I
fun.
have thoughts on this. I've seen covers, right? I have thoughts on how this could be achieved. Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Do the
okay,
thing.
we'll talk. But yeah, no, I love it. I'm moving your book up my TBR. Thanks, I appreciate that. I don't know when I'm gonna get to it because when am I writing? It's fine.
Everything's fine. Nothing is ruined.
Yeah, but if people want to follow you, meet you in person potentially, see your ramblings, get your books, where can they find you? Websites, social media, upcoming books, events, etc. Rhiannon.
I am most active on Instagram at Riri_reads and writes. Same thing on Threads. Same thing on TikTok. So you can find me there. I sell my books direct on my Etsy shop. I'm moving next month, so I am going to close my shop for a month, but they're also, like Allie said, they're on KU, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy books online, you can get them. And I'm working on a sci-fi. My Etsy shop is Oleander Inc., and it's also linked in my social
media.
Yeah. And then I'm working on a sci-fi romance. So hopefully if you want to know about more books, you just have to follow me because it's not available yet.
Do you have any upcoming events or talks or signings or anything like that?
Not this year. I am hoping to do. I just had a baby a couple months ago, so
congratulations!
Thank you. So I have not done any events this year, but I'm hoping in 2026 I will be doing some events. So I will definitely share as that gets closer.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Follow me. Sign up for my newsletter.
Yes. All the things. Do all the things. And Allie.
You can find me most places. So no, not on Twitter anymore. I left that hellscape. On Threads, Instagram, TikTok as CL Aficionado, or just search Allie Williams. On Facebook, I'm down as Ellie Rose Allie Williams, like one name. Because I have another pen name. I have a Facebook group called the Shenanigan Squad, which is so much fun, slightly chaotic in there. You can find me on my website. All my paperbacks are available on my website, ellierosealliewilliams.com. Fuck, wait there. I've got it open on another tab. 2 secs. .com. Yes, .com. If you want to know about my academic work, all my editing services. I'm a freelance editor. I've worked with Ray. I've worked with Katie Robert. I've worked with Talia Hibbert. I do editing. That's all on aliwilliams.org. Where am I? Oh, well, I was supposed to be coming back to the States and coming to Florida in September, but I'm not because it's for a conference which I would recommend called Smart Lovers. It is both a kink education and a kinky writer conference. It's absolutely brilliant. I was there last year, but flying into Florida as a gay woman with a suitcase full of very, very explicit gay books, river fisting, feels like I'm just leaning into it now. It feels like a not the best of plans, especially considering, and Ray knows this because I messaged her when it happened, when we came to Vegas for a conference. My girlfriend got pulled into a secondary interrogation room for an hour, which was scary, and her suitcase was full of very, very corny queer books, and I was like, I'm never going to see her again. Oh my god, she's going to be detained. She's never going to forgive me or want to come to a conference again. So I'm taking a break from the States. However, I am going to be at Authors in Wonderland in Nottingham at the end of July, and also the Strange Games Festival, which is the amazing little board games festival that I go to every summer because nerd. Very fun. But I'm going to be in Wonderland at the end of in Nottingham at the end of July, and I will be at various places next year as well. But also, I'm pretty friendly. Come poke at me, join my newsletter, say hi on the internet, and I have a Patreon, which I am not always the best at updating, but they get all my books for free, like an ebook copy of everything free. And if you join my $10 tier, you get a signed paperback at Christmas. I send you a little parcel as like a little paperback at Christmas. I think that's most of the things. Usually I'm just fucking wilding out here.
To the note of you not coming to the States, I mean, there has been several authors from various other countries
Yes.
who have said that they've had issues and have either been like turned away or deported or whatever. So it is a real thing, unfortunately, to kind of
Yeah,
have to consider.
it is.
In
And
the States, it's kind of scary to fly with certain books if you think about it. Like
yeah,
my suitcases have been gone through at TSA at least twice at this point. But my books look just, normal. It's just little black women on them. You have no idea that there are queer things happening in those books.
no, whereas I have there's a lot of queer people on my covers, and look, at the end of the day, I wish I could come back out. Like Florida last year was amazing. I was at Dirty Daddy's D Vegas in March, and that was phenomenal, incredible, like amazing readers. Um, just need y'all to have a different administration. That would be. I mean, obviously, saying that from the place of privilege of being over here in the UK is a little bit shitty, but also, yeah. I would like to come see all my friends and to not worry about them so much. That would be nice. But alternatively, you all could just move here. Just saying. Just saying.
If only it was just easy to move on a whim. Um, on that note, thank you both for coming on. It's been great. I would love to talk more fantasy stuff and just book stuff in general because I've had fun. I don't know if y'all have fun, but I have fun. But this has been Ray's Corner. I want to thank Rhiannon Rollness and Allie Williams for coming on and giving us very much real conversations and escape into some fantasy. Writing can be lonely, and when authors come together, we get to have fun and get different types of rewards. We meet new people, we hear new ideas, and we get to see how people approach their craft and get inspired ourselves and within. And so, as a reminder, nobody puts Ray in a corner unless she's gushing over books. Bye.